greetings. And it's Friday, so of course it's time for our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, the guy I think of as America's senator, although the people of Vermont are very, very pleased that he represents them. Bernie, welcome.
Great to be with you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us. The planet is on fire, and the Republicans are insisting that the president not be able to pay the bills that they ran up with their craziness over the last few years. What's going on in D.C.? It seems like it's insane.
What's going on right now is that our Republican friends have decided that for the first time in the history of the United States of America, our country, the largest and wealthiest country in the world, will not pay its bills. And that is the position of a number of Republicans. And obviously, if you go that direction and you don't pay your bills, you're going to bring forth not only an American financial crisis, but an international financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And that is just, unthinkable. The other thing that's going on, Tom, is that my colleague, Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, has declared that revenue is off the table, that we don't have to talk about revenue anymore because as a result of the fiscal cliff, we raised $620 billion in revenue by asking people making $400,000 a year or more to pay somewhat more in taxes. Meanwhile, and this is the important point that everybody has got to understand, virtually every Republican and some Democrats now want to go forward in terms of deficit reduction by cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and some want to go further and cut nutrition programs, education, environmental programs, and virtually every program that the middle class or working families of this country depend upon. And that is something I will do my best to oppose. One of the mechanisms that they're looking at in order to cut Social Security is a so-called chained CPI, which is a reconfiguration as to how you do cost of living adjustments for seniors. And the argument is that the current system is too generous, which is absolutely untrue in my view. In fact, the current determination for COLAs for seniors is, to my view, underestimates the needs of seniors. But in any case, if they got their way, what we would see is very significant cuts in Social Security, such that if you're 65 today, when you're 75, you'll be receiving about $600 a year less, and by the time you are 85, about $1,000 a year less. Furthermore, there would be cuts for disabled veterans, if you can believe that. In terms of Medicare, there are proposals to raise the eligibility age, to make other types of cuts, Medicaid cuts, etc. The point here that I hope everybody understands is that we can do deficit reduction in a way that is fair. And let me just give you some examples of that. Right now, while my friend Senator McConnell tells you that we don't need more revenue, the truth is we certainly do need more revenue. That today, at 15.7%, revenue as a percentage of gross domestic product is the lowest that it has been in 60 years. So if we look back just into the Clinton era, when this country ran a several $100 billion surplus, revenue as part of GDP was over 20%. Now it is under 16%. Now, how can we raise additional revenue in a way that is fair? Well, for a start, we should understand that in 2011, corporations paid just 12% of their profits in taxes, and that, Tom, is the lowest since 1972.
Wow.
We should understand that at 1.6%, corporate revenue as a percentage of GDP is lower than any other major country in the OECD, and that includes, of course, Europe, Britain, Australia, South Korea, Switzerland, Norway, you name it.
Corporate revenue or corporate tax payments?
Corporate revenue, the amount of revenue that corporations contribute to the federal government as a percentage of GDP.
Revenue, in other words, revenue paid to the government, which would be corporate income taxes.
Right,
and taxes.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So it's only 1.6%, which is a lower percentage than any other major country.
Wow.
Point being that when our corporate friends get on television, they say, oh, my goodness, we need tax reform. Corporations are just paying so much. By and large, that is absolutely not true. What you have are nominal rates on the books, which in fact are high. But in terms of what they actually pay compared to other countries, it is not high. Furthermore, you're looking at a situation, hard to believe, that 1 out of 4 major profitable corporations is paying nothing in federal income taxes. We're losing about $100 billion every year because corporations and the wealthy are stashing their money in tax shelters in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and elsewhere. So if you look at what corporations actually pay, if you look at some of the major oil companies, you look at some of the major Wall Street companies, in any given year, you could find a major company like an Exxon Mobil reporting to the Security Exchange Commission, say in 2009, that not only did they not pay any federal income taxes, they actually received a significant rebate from the IRS. Bottom line here is we have a choice as a nation. And what the choice is do we cut Social Security that has nothing to do with the deficit because it's independently funded by the payroll tax? Do you cut Medicare? Do you cut Medicaid? Do you cut education and nutrition and other programs in the middle of a terrible recession where unemployment is sky high, where seniors are struggling in many cases to keep their heads above water, where kids are graduating from college incredibly deep in debt? Do you cut those programs, or do you say to large corporations, guess what? We have a serious deficit problem. You're going to have to help us not only deal with the deficit, but bring in revenue so that we can create the jobs that our country desperately needs. So that's one area that I think we have to focus a whole lot of attention on. The other area that I've been working on, we just announced yesterday, that we are going to be introducing major legislation dealing with global warming. I hope that our listeners know that all over the world, including the United States, we are seeing significant weather aberrations. Last year was the hottest year on record in the United States. We have seen a situation where last year the federal government declared 48 states in this nation having emergency situations because of extreme weather problems, whether it's fires, floods, or droughts. Right now, you are seeing in the continent of Australia a continent burning up with record-breaking heat levels, where you are seeing drought, and it may well be that Australia is the canary in the coal mine here. But all over this world, we're seeing serious problems, and the time is long overdue for the Congress to get its act together in dealing with global warming.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. He'll be taking your calls at 866-987-THOM right after this break. So stick around. And also check out Senator Sanders' website. It's at sanders.senate.gov.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Brunch with Bernie, sanders.senate.gov. Check it out. Sign up for his newsletter. It's great. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Sanders on the line. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, and Gary in Chicago, Illinois, watching us on Free Speech TV. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator, what do you think of Paul Krugman as negotiator for Obama as Treasury Secretary? He's against austerity. He's for government job creation. He wants to preserve Medicare and Social Security, and most importantly, he's not owned by Wall Street, and he has a long history of these beliefs. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. Paul Krugman, in my view, does an excellent job. He's columnist for the New York Times, and I think he does a fantastic job in educating the American people in very readable language about economics. And I think Krugman would make an excellent Secretary of the Treasury. Unfortunately, as you know, Gary, the president nominated a fellow named Jack Lew, and Lew was his former OMB director. I am not sympathetic to the appointment of Lew. Lew spent some time on Wall Street. I think he is not the type of guy to be taking on Wall Street, which is the kind of Secretary of the Treasury that we need. Also, I share your concern that we need somebody to stand up to the Republicans and protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I'm not sure that Jack Lew will be that person. So I think Paul Krugman would be an excellent nominee. I think there are some other, Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor, would be an excellent nominee. There's some other guys out there, women out there. But it does appear that is not the person or the kind of person that the president is going to nominate.
If we end up with Jack Lew's, Bernie, what's your sense of how he's going to be working with Congress and where we're going to go?
Well, I think, and I say this as a supporter of the president, worked hard to see him reelected. Mm-hmm. The president has put a financial team around him over the years, not unlike the financial teams that Bush or Clinton before him put together, and that is Wall Street centric. These are guys who in many cases come from Wall Street, who are sympathetic to Wall Street, and those are precisely the folks we don't need. I think that in Jack Lew, you got a very smart guy. He knows the budget very well. He's a nice guy. But I think he's not the person we need at this moment. What we need at this moment is somebody really to remind Wall Street that they can't continue to exist as an island unto themselves, engaged in reckless speculation, that they have got to invest in the real economy. They can't rip people off with sky-high interest rates on credit cards, that they have to end this incredible speculation that they are currently engaged in. So, and not to mention, in my view, we need to break up the major financial institutions who are now so large that they are, once again, much too big to fail. So, I see the appointment of Jack Lew as a continuation of Obama's approach toward Wall Street and approach to the Congress, which is nowhere near as progressive as I would like it to be.
Okay. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more Senator Sanders and your questions here on Brunch with Bernie, the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line taking your calls. And Mary is that Bernie, Texas?
It sure is.
Wow. Okay, you're on the air.
Did they name a town after me in Texas then?
Yes, they did. I asked the Chamber of Commerce, and they said yes.
Thank you.
Bernie, I wanted to know, why don't we put a big enough import tax on the companies that took our jobs overseas so to pay them to bring them back here where they make their money?
Well, Mary, thank you very much for that question, and that is an issue that, Tom and I have talked about for many, many years, and it's an issue we'll continue to work on. I don't know how you grow the middle class, how workers earn decent wages, if we continue to see a decline in our manufacturing sector. Over the last 10 years, we have lost some 55,000 factories. Unfettered free trade has cost us millions of decent-paying jobs that used to be the heart and soul of middle-class America. And I worry very much that many of the new jobs that are being manufactured, that are being created over the years, are going to be low-wage jobs, not enabling workers to earn the kind of money they need to live a middle-class life. So I am absolutely in agreement. I'm speaking to you as somebody who has never once voted for any of these trade agreements, NAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, Central American Free Trade Agreement. I think essentially what they are about is making it easier for companies to shut down in America, find cheap labor abroad. So your answer about establishing a tariff, bringing back tariffs, and having us with free trade that works for workers and not just large corporations is exactly what we've got to do.
Larry, I'm sorry, I don't see a city or state for you. Where are you calling from?
Mills River, North Carolina.
Oh, okay, great. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello?
Yes, Larry, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders?
Yes.
We keep talking about cutting the budget and where all the money's going to come from and everything, and they want to cut Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and all that stuff. Why don't they cut the space race down a little bit? How many billions of dollars are they spending in the space race? And how do we don't know that all the rockets that they're sending up is what's causing all the problem with the ozone and atmosphere? I don't think automobiles is causing it.
Well, I half agree with you, Larry, but I half don't agree with you. I think the way to do deficit reduction is certainly not to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other important programs. A whole lot of people in our country are hurting, and I think sometimes Congress forgets that we have elderly people trying to survive on $13,000 a year. You got workers who are making $9 or $10 an hour who are dependent upon Medicaid. You have senior citizens who have very little money, and Medicare is life and death to them. So, I will do everything I can to prevent cuts in those programs. I think that the real way you move toward deficit reduction at a time when our country has gross income and wealth inequality, where the people on top doing phenomenally well, while working people are seeing a decline in their standard of living, you've got to ask the wealthy and large corporations, as I mentioned earlier, to stop paying their fair share of taxes. We took a baby step forward on that a couple of weeks ago in terms of the fiscal cliff issue, but we've got to do more. And also, I think we could take a hard look at military spending. I don't know about the space program. Space program, I think, is valuable. I think it provides some new technology. I would much prefer to focus on wasteful military spending.
Manuel in Grays Lake, Illinois, listening on WCPT. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders and Tom.
Hey, man.
Senator Sanders, I was watching last night when you were on the Ed Schultz show for the segment, and I was very happy that you were talking about the issues of poverty in our country.
Yep.
And what I was wondering is, why wasn't that a good opportunity to tie in that a lot of our problems that we have in our nation is due to the free trade agreements that we need to stop, and that we also need to reactivate all the regulations that we had from the Depression era?
Well, thanks, Emmanuel. Sometimes when you're on a TV show, one of the reasons I love doing the show with Tom, and Tom and I were chatting about it before we went on the air, is you have the opportunity to go into a little bit of length, in a little bit of depth about some of the important issues. You can't necessarily do that on TV. But you're raising the same question that Mary raised a few moments ago, and it's a very important issue. And what we're talking about here is that for a very long period of time, the way that working class people made it into the middle class, the way they were able to send their kids to college, the way they were able to get a pension, the way they were able to get decent health care benefits, was often with strong unions in the manufacturing sector, producing real products. For a number of reasons, trade being one, automation being the other, we have seen a huge decline in manufacturing in America. In the last 10 years alone, we have seen the loss of 55,000 factories, and over a period of years, we've lost millions and millions of good-paying jobs. Companies have shut down in America. They've gone to China, gone to other developing countries, pay people pennies an hour, and then they bring their products back into this country. So, Manuel, if your question is, do I think that those trade policies have worked, I categorically do not. I think they have failed the American worker, one of the reasons why the middle class is disappearing. My belief is that we have got to demand that corporate America start rebuilding our manufacturing base here if they want us to purchase their products. And if you watch TV tonight, there'll be a million ads there telling you got to buy this product, you got to buy that product. It's important that we begin to manufacture those products right here in the United States of America. So this is an issue that I've been working on for years. Our difficulty is not only do you have all of corporate America on the other side of this issue, not only do you have almost all of the Republicans on the other side of the issue, you have many Democrats as well. So you've had, NAFTA was given to us during the Clinton administration. Ronald Reagan was a strong advocate of unfettered free trade, and so is President Obama. So we have a lot of political work on our hands to address this issue.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. 34 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. And Peggy in Franksville, Wisconsin. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Senator Sanders. My question deals with the gerrymandered districts. In Wisconsin, we had 52% of the population vote Democratic. However, we have both the Assembly and our state Senate is majority Republican, as well as 5 of our 8 federal representatives. And now Scott Walker is talking about possibly splitting up electoral votes. So even though President Obama was elected with over 1 million votes, they're talking about, well, if this district went for Romney, he should get the vote. And it would have ended up to be like 5-5 for electoral votes. Anyway, so what can we do about this?
Well, Peggy, that's an excellent question, and I wish I had a magical answer. Most of those issues of districts are going to be determined by the states. When they get into racial issues, I think then you're dealing with another issue where the federal government may be able to play a role. But I think there is just no question that the Republicans have been extremely aggressive in the understanding that they really don't have majority support. So through voter suppression, gerrymandering is not a new concept, but I think the Republicans have taken it perhaps to a new level. So the only answer I have is just within your own state and in other states which have been impacted by that, to just be as aggressive as you can to make sure that people have democratic representation. If a state is voting overwhelmingly for one party, the other party should not be winning the elections.
Carol in Charlestown, New Hampshire. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello? I want to ask Senator Sanders, I heard that disability insurance is going to be running 21% short in 2016, and I'm wondering if he knows anything about this.
I don't know about disability per se, but I do know that Social Security will pay out all benefits for retirees for the next 21 years, which gives us the time to come up with a formulation and an approach that will make it solvent and strong for the next 50 or 75 years. In terms of how we fund disability benefits, how we fund Social Security benefits, one of the major problems right now, Carol, is there is a cap. There is a cap on the amount of revenue wealthy people contribute into the system. And right now, it's about $113,000. If we lift that cap, we can bring substantially more revenue into the system and make Social Security and disability benefits strong for decades and decades to come. And that's something we must do.
Peter in Voorheesville, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you very much, Tom. My question for Senator Sanders, if workers stop going into debt to maintain their standard of living, and therefore the economy would slow down and corporations would have to pay more money to the workers after it slowed down. Since 1972, wages have only gone up $1.36 an hour, whereas wages for the rich, the 1%, is 275%. So that's my question, and I ask myself this simple thing before I buy something: will it sell in my yard sale? And that usually ends the sale. Thank you very much, and I'll wait for your answer.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Peter makes, I think, the main point that Peter is making is that real wages for millions and millions of American workers has gone down over the last number of decades. He is right in saying, and it's a sad point to have to make, 1973, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think 1973 was the year, taking inflation into account, where workers' wages in this country were the highest, and it's been downhill since then. Does that sound right to you?
It does. It was in the 70s. I thought it was a little later, but it's in that area. Absolutely.
And Peter's point is that since then, taking inflation into account, real wages have gone down. And in recent years, what happened, in order to maintain a middle-class lifestyle, two important things happened. And Peter refers to one of them, and that is workers had to borrow substantial sums of money. They went into debt. And the second way that workers and families maintained their lifestyle, their standard of living, was women entered the workforce in very large numbers and were working very, very long hours. So in general, the way that is the way that working class people maintained their standard of living. And clearly what we would much prefer to see and what we've got to fight for is decent wages in this country. It gets back to the fact that we have to create millions and millions of jobs, and I think you can do that by rebuilding our infrastructure. It gets back to the issue that several callers just today have raised, and that is the need to make fundamental changes in our trade policy so that companies are not throwing American workers out on the street, moving abroad. And the situation is so bad in manufacturing that while in some areas there's been a slight uptick in the number of manufacturing jobs, many of those new jobs are now paying substantially less than workers in factories used to make. So we're getting some new jobs, but those jobs are paying a fraction of what the older jobs used to pay. So in this country today, we have a jobs crisis. We have almost 15% of our workers unemployed or underemployed. That number is higher for people of color. Number is higher for young workers. We have an income crisis. Median family income has gone down by over $3,000 in the last 10 years. Millions and millions of workers today are working longer hours for lower wages. Older workers, in some cases, having lost good-paying jobs, are now working for half the wages that they used to receive. That is the economic crisis in America. And you throw that into the fact that while the middle class disappears and we have a record number of people living in poverty, people on top are doing phenomenally well, and we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth, worse here than any time since 1928. So Peter raises the right question, and those are the issues that we have to address. Is deficit reduction important? Yes, it is. But what's even more important is rebuilding the economy for working families so when our kids go out to get a job, that they can earn a living wage and a decent income.
Matt in Bryan, Ohio. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. My question is, do you think that there would possibly be some legislation or somebody would possibly push some legislation for something similar to the Marcora law? Do you know about the Marcora law?
Sorry, Matt, I don't. Can you explain it briefly?
From the brief explanation that I was given is basically that it states that the top paid person in a corporation is only allowed to make 6.5% more than the lowest paid person.
Okay.
And it's actually a law somewhere in Spain, I believe.
Okay.
It's actually in the law books.
Okay. The likelihood of passing something like that in the United States Congress is next to zero. As I think Tom and I have talked about many times, and I think many of the listeners understand, To a very significant degree, you have a Republican Party and a Republican House of Representatives who see their main function in life as to protecting the wealthiest people and the largest corporations and their big campaign contributors. And you got a Democratic Party which has some great people who are fighting for working families, and some people who, in some ways, are not all that different from Republicans. So what Matt is raising is the question of why it is that in America we have a situation today where CEOs of major corporations are earning hundreds of times what their workers are making. This is a reasonably new phenomenon. I mean, obviously CEOs and the bosses always made more than workers, but the gap now between the CEO and the average employee has just escalated over the years. And it's not only salary, it's stock options, it's retirement plans, it's golden parachutes, it is all kinds of benefits which the CEOs get. So you see situations where CEOs in some cases are busy figuring out how they can cut back on the pension plans of their workers, while at the same time they're giving themselves phenomenal pension plans and golden parachutes. So, you know, the issue of how you can bring more equality into the corporate world is a very important issue. There are ways to try to do that. But Matt, I'm the kind of idea you proposed is not going to happen in this country in the near future. That's for sure.
Bernie, just a half a minute to the break. Might a piece of that be to reverse the policy that Reagan put into place that let CEOs be paid with stock? Before Reagan, that was a practice that was pretty much outlawed in our tax code.
Well, I think there are a number of ways you can approach it. For example, you can create a situation where if salaries are above a certain amount, it cannot be deducted by the company for tax purposes, for example.
Yeah. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our national town hall meeting for Brunch with Bernie. Check out his website at sanders.senate.gov. They put a lot of work into keeping that a great news source. It's really worth checking out.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And, of course, at ThomHartmann.com, you can pick up our new iPhone and iPad app for the show. Plus, you can participate in our message boards, all kinds of cool stuff. It's virtually all free. And welcome back. Don in Oceanside, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. I have a couple of statements I want to make, and then you can go ahead and answer. First, in terms of gun control, I know several people that have 100% disability from Gulf War I, and they go hunting, they go fishing, they have a driver's license, they can drive everywhere. If they can't get a job, then they shouldn't have a hunting license or a permit to have a gun. Number two, let's put everybody on Social Security. I don't think Jay Rockefeller needs a retirement from being in the Senate for 6 terms. I don't think our comrade out here, Duke Cunningham, needs to have his military retirement and his other retirement. Hopefully that money is going to pay restitution for somebody else. And thirdly, or fourthly, you know, I've been working since I was 15. My junior year in high school, I earned $2,000 at $1 an hour punched in at a time clock. I worked my way through high school. I worked my way through undergraduate school. I worked my way to get a PhD in chemistry. And I have a reasonable retirement fund that I saved myself on top of Social Security.
Don, can we let Bernie respond to you? Was there?
He can go ahead now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, Don raised a number of issues. I'm not quite sure what his question was. In terms of gun control, obviously, hunting in my state and throughout this country is something that millions of people engage in. And must and should have the right to be able to do that. Do we want to make sure that guns do not fall into the hands of people who are mentally incapable, or psychologically, I would say, incapable of having them? People who are a threat to themselves and to other people? The answer is obviously yes, we've got to do that. In terms of Social Security, my own view, as I indicated earlier, is that everybody, no matter how wealthy you are, who contributes into the system should be part of the system. I think the strength of Social Security is its universality. Everybody is in it. I think the way you bring in more revenue is that Jay Rockefeller or anybody else who has a lot of money should be asked to contribute more into the system by lifting the cap on taxable income. And if you do that, we can make Social Security strong, not just for the next 20 years, which it is, but for the next 75 years. But I believe in universality, and I think everybody should remain in the system. So those are, I think, some of the issues that Don raised.
Bernie, half a minute. Aren't there some federal employees or state employees who are not in Social Security? Should they be?
There have, over the years, been more people into the program. That's true. I can't answer the question. I don't know who is not in the federal government. I know sometimes people think, well, members of Congress are not on Social Security. That's wrong. We pay into it. We get it. Uh-huh. So I don't know the answer to that question, Tom.
Apparently, that's what Don thought, was that Jay Rockefeller had a pension or
no,
instead
Jay
of
Rockefeller is,
yeah.
Can't speak for Jay. I'm assuming he's on Social Security.
Yeah, okay. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Welcome back to the program where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, don't think so. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. Jim in Citrus Heights, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, thank you for having me. With the polarization of Washington, I think it's time for a higher standard for our congressmen. Do you think it would be possible for all congressmen, both the House and the Senate, to have required 10 years of tax returns in order to be elected?
Required, no. But if, very often in campaigns, people raise that question and candidates, including myself, make that information available. But I wouldn't say required, no.
Okay. Larry in Pulaski, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hey, Larry, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you. Two of my heroes here. I have a comment about Social Security. Could you relate to the people out there and about the cost of living? They're talking about abolishing that. That is so dangerous, because if people would just close their eyes for a second and think, if they done away with the cost of living, think about what they were getting when they were on it and what they're getting now. Like me, I'm 73 now. And just do the math. If I'd be getting Social Security, what I got when I retired, it would be thousands of dollars. So this idea about Social Security, the people that's on it now won't affect them, that's baloney. That will affect you. Could you relate that message out there to the people?
Right. Larry, you're absolutely right. Let me just briefly repeat what the story is. What exists right now is, by law, the government increases Social Security benefits. It's called a cost of living adjustment, a COLA, every year based on inflation. The theory is that if a senior is spending 4% more on medicine, on drugs, on food, on heating, transportation, whatever it is, if his or her costs have gone up by 4%, they will see a 4% increase in their Social Security benefits. That's called a COLA. Now, the question is, how do you determine inflation? How do you determine it? It's harder than it appears at first blush. What the advocates of a so-called chain CPI want, who want to reduce Social Security benefits, this is what they are saying. They're saying that the current formulation is too generous, that we're giving too much money to seniors in COLAs, that we're not taking into consideration, for example, that if the cost of beef went up, seniors would get chicken. If the cost of chicken went up, seniors could eat dog food or whatever it may be. I think that is just a very bogus argument. I would argue, and many economists would join me, in saying that because seniors spend a heck of a lot of their money on health care needs, on prescription drugs, on heating, those costs have gone up a lot faster than general inflation. For example, if you want to buy a computer, a laptop, the cost of a laptop has gone down in recent years. But most people who are 75 or 80 are not buying laptops, they're buying prescription drugs, which have gone up. So I believe that the current formulation is inadequate. It's not that it's not too generous, it is inadequate. We got to raise it. But there are others who want to cut it. If you cut it, let's be clear, its impact would be immediate. If you are 65 today, by the time you are 75, when you're 75, you would see about $600 a year less than you're currently receiving. And if you're trying to live on $15,000 a year, which many Social Security retirees are, that is a big bite. And if you're 85, when you go to 85, it'll be over $1,000 a year less. So I am doing my best to take on all of the Republicans, some of the Democrats who want to move to the so-called chain CPI and cut benefits not only for retirees and people on disability, but also disabled veterans.
Reginald in Houston, Texas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, yes, sir. The banks have been paying back this $10 billion penalties and fines for misappropriation of funds. I wonder if that $10 billion fine that they're paying is going to go directly to the people, or it's going to go into the government coffers, or it's going directly to people. And this is the direct result of Elizabeth Warren being on a banking committee.
Well, I think the money right now, Reginald, will go into the government, and it's the government's job to demand that people who are ripped off by banks in illegal ways are made whole. So I think as it stands now, the money is going into the government.
Okay. And Paul in San Francisco, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. We're about 2 minutes out from the end of the show, or the end of the hour.
Hello, Senator Sanders. And Tom, I'm calling because I'm concerned about the post office, and I have recently signed a petition on petitions.whitehouse.gov that's urging the president to urge Congress to repeal the 2006 Postal Accountability Enhancement Act.
Yep.
I'm calling to find out if that's something that you would support.
Well, Paul, let me tell you, it's an issue that I've worked on very, very hard, and in fact helped to write a halfway decent bill that passed the Senate, which did address the issue. The main problem, not a lot of people know this, and I think Paul does know it, and that is the major financial crisis facing the post office is that as a result of congressional legislation in 2006, they are asked to come up with $5 billion every single year for future retiree health benefits. That is a huge sum of money. It is unprecedented in the government, unprecedented in the private sector, probably unprecedented in the world. Right now, the fund that is available for future postal retirees' healthcare needs is fully, as I understand it, fully developed. It has over $40 billion in the fund. So what we did in the Senate bill is, for all intent and purposes, created a situation where the Postal Service will not have to come up with that $5 billion every single year. What we also did is preserve post offices all over the country from being shut down, and distribution plants as well.
And great stuff. So, Bernie, thanks so much for being with us this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, my pleasure, Tom. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.